So hello everyone. So I'm Liz Rosenthal from Power to the Pixel, and the purpose of this session now is to talk about the financing and distribution of cinematic and interactive VR. So we've got two leading producers who, Antoine works more in the cinematic version of telling stories, and Adrien from the interactive side. Just a little bit about my company. I've spent 10 years running labs and markets where I've helped develop over 100 projects, interactive projects, and also helped broker relationships between producers and talent and different types of finance and commissioners. And over the 10 years, I think I've seen now with this whole nascent market of VR, there's a lot more money suddenly coming into the sort of digital media world that we never really saw with the sort of web doc form and online narratives. And it's kind of an exciting time. But at the same point, we know there's a very small market and consumer base. So what we want to do today is look at the projects that Antoine and Adrien have been producing, financing and distributing, and look at what the kind of like ecosystem is today, and then look at what's happening, what we kind of think is going to happen in the future. So I don't have a clicker, so can you move over to the next slide? Thanks. So what we did was very quickly this morning put together a kind of like framework of 10 different ways you can finance your projects. And by the end, it would be great if anyone's got any other ideas that we can throw into the mix. So the first one is incubators, second is hardware companies, third is government funds, fourth is broadcasters, both public and private, fifth is foundations and NGOs, the sixth is platforms, the online platforms, seventh is all kinds of exhibitors, arcades and festivals, the eighth is private investors and crowdfunding, the ninth is post-production companies like Framestore in the UK, and the 10th is brands. So we're going to start, though, by looking at the two last projects that Antoine and Adrien have produced. So I'm going to start with Adrien, who's going to talk about his Firebird series. And it'd be great, Adrien, if you could sort of run through the financing plan, the budget, distribution and licensing, and the revenue and the money that you made out of the project. So can we move to the next slide? Thanks.
All right, thank you, Liz, and hello, everyone. So the company Inner Space has released last August an experience which you can actually try out downstairs in the market, which is called Firebird. La Péri is the first episode of a franchise, and the franchise is Firebird. This first episode was completely produced in-house on our own funds because, it started before. Well, at the time, there were very few sources and structured sources for financing. But that enabled us to have a proof of concept project in the market and track record in terms of awards and the ability to release this type of content, which recently this year enabled us to first get into the CNC pipeline, which Anna just mentioned, and work in co-production with Oculus for the next 3 episodes, which are about to come this year and in early 2018. So maybe a bit about the distribution structure that we've used and that we're using on those titles. Because we do interactive and real-time content, as opposed to Antoine, for now, we work mainly on distribution platforms, which you probably all know, Steam and Oculus and so on and so forth. The other way for us to distribute our content is through location-based entertainment, well, places where you get to experience the content. So we just mentioned The Enemy before, which is being showcased in museums. This is something that we've been doing, showcasing La Péri in theaters or places which are looking at VR content to try to gain new audiences. And that's essentially the way we're going to pursue distribution of our specific type of content. And in terms of production, so we're working with Oculus. We'll probably get to the bottom of this in the conversation. But one of the essential aspects for us, in addition to, of course, getting the money in the bank to actually make the content, was to partner with a company which could help us as well on the distribution side, which I think is one of the essential parameters to consider right now when you're looking for a partner, which is not only how you're going to make the content, but how you're going to make it successful so that it's not just a one-shot experience.
Great. And in terms of money, so how much is the budget? I mean, I know you financed the first episode yourself, but how much Oculus giving you to finance a project like this, and what kind of length is it as an experience?
I'm under a strict NDA, so I cannot give you the exact numbers. But roughly, in terms of budget, what we're looking at when we talk about this type of experiments is roughly around 300, 400K per episode. And in terms of revenue, I'm going to shock everyone in this room by saying that we're not making money yet on La Péri. It's, you know, hopefully will come in time. What I want to stress, though, is that for us, releasing on platforms like Steam and so on and so forth makes us very strongly dependent of the state of the market day one. How many people are actually equipped with headsets on the release date. Not how many people are going to be equipped in the next 3 to 4 or 5 months, but really day one. What I mean by that is that the production environment, the distribution, environment in which we release the first episode of La Péri is drastically different than the one in which we're going to be releasing the next episode. Hopefully I'll have better news to announce next year.
Okay, and also in terms of the kind of deal, can you talk a bit about what your kind of, is there exclusivity with Oculus? Does it last a certain amount of time? Can you talk about that at all?
Well, there are exclusivity parameters, of course, when you work with headset makers in general, and not only specifically Oculus. So yeah, we have a short period of exclusivity on those contents. But in turn, that also enables us to hit the nail on the head when discussions about distribution and essentially screen estate are going to come into in discussion when we release the content.
And I guess it's it's exclusivity for online as opposed to location-based then, or is that kind of thing being sorted out in the contracts?
We're looking at location-based right now, but essentially for the type of content that we release, this is not specifically tailored right now to location-based as it exists, which is essentially gaming-focused arcades. We're going to be looking at that in the future, and at that time we'll probably have conversations on exclusivity.
And Great. Also, all the big ones don't have the same rules of exclusivity. Oculus, Viveport, Daydream, they don't ask the same thing.
Of course.
So it's really specific on each of them.
Yeah, it's bespoke, every single deal at the moment, no template. So let's move on to Antoine. Can we move on to the next slide? Thank you. So would you like to tell us some more about these two projects and how you put them together?
So of course, but I will focus on the money side because there is many creators that speak on many conferences. So to speak about production, so as Adrien told you, I'm more into what we call cinematic reality, which is live action based virtual reality with a real camera and real actors. So the first piece I did was Philippe. So of course, as it was the first piece, we will all need to take the space and to win awards so we can exist. So this first piece was €500,000, and we got 1/3 funded by the CNC, like you've seen before. So there is many grants into the CNC that you can have 2 or 3 depending on your project. 1/3 was with a broadcaster, so we'll speak after. It was called Arte, which has an application called Arte 360. It was one of the first broadcasters to have a distribution application. And the other third was our money that we invest because we need to invest on the first movie. But then these investments, we didn't make it for nothing because then we own the rights. Because Arte only asks you exclusivity for Europe. You can also negotiate for only French and Germany, but then they give you less money. So we accept the exclusivity, and we were glad to accept it for Europe, but then we kept the rights for the rest of the world. So then after, like we lost like 180,000 euros. So after we sold it to Hulu. Hulu was a good deal, so they take the exclusivity for the US and Canada. So I'm still searching partner for Asia or other country. And then also we have kept our VR-based theater rights. So now I got like 30 VR theater around Ukraine, Russia, Brazil, in Tel Aviv. Like small thing, I don't really know where they are or what it looks like, but it began to send checks every month, little ones, 600 euro, 900, sometimes 1,000, but maybe in 1 year and a half, this investment will be refunded. And then, thanks to this movie, we were able to do a second one, because many people like it, and so trust that we can deliver a new movie. So then we do alteration. Both of the movie are shot in English. So it's really important, really important to precise that, because if you stick to your own market, it will be really difficult to finance a high, expensive project. So the other one called Alteration, it's also in English. Of course, the same production company, but a different director. And this one was 800,000 euros. So then the CNC adapt also on your budget, so you can get a little bit more of them if your budget is more expensive. Their limitation is no more in percentage. Then we get still the same team, like why change the team? So we went back to Arte, we take the European rights. And then this time we went straight to the US, because now we get more door open. So we went to one of the big five called Oculus, that came also in the financement. So then it was more complicated to deal with the exclusivity and the territory, because the US big broadcaster will ask exclusivity, but they don't want to pay enough to have the worldwide exclusivity. So we make Arte and Oculus deal together. Of course, I was in the center of this deal all the time, so that's why we finance it. So now it will be exclusivity on Oculus and Gear, but Arte can broadcast it in Europe on their own application, iOS and Android. But if you want to watch it in Europe, you still have to watch it on Oculus and Gear. And now on the VR-based theater and digital exclusivity, I also got for 1 year an exclusivity to show it in Oculus and Gear, even in LBE. So to summarize a little bit. And also, we got also many little grants that we'll speak later. So I tell you only the big part, but then you see many logos. So all these little logos give you 15, 20, 25, but it's still something important. So you still have to look for the big part first, because without the big parts, it's impossible to fund. But then at the end, you still have a gap, like between 10 and 20%, and then you're going to take all the little other possibility, then we'll talk soon.
Mm-hmm. So in terms of the sort of licensing and revenue, from the licensing on the platforms and the kind of revenues, the checks, can you say how much has come in from these projects?
So in revenues after distribution or before?
Before and after.
So after, it's really easy, zero, because all the main platforms now are investing because they want content, they want to build an audience that will reach their HMD. So for now, when they give us money to produce, it's like we're on drip, because it won't last like this, but because they want to have the product for free for their audience. So I won't have any share percentage revenue from Oculus, because they want to give it for free for their audience, and it's the same for Arte. Arte is a public channel, so they get the obligation to deliver to France and Germany the program for free, and then it will apply for all Europe too, because they want people to download their application simply. So on revenue, I got nothing. Then on Hulu, the deal was 60K, so 60K for 2-year exclusivity, US and Canada, 18 months. And then Oculus it was, I asked, so I don't know, maybe should I ask more? We'll never know. It was 200K for 1-year exclusivity worldwide.
That's good. Sounds fantastic. And in terms of, do you know what did Hulu charge in the US? How much did Hulu charge? What's the fee to view? It's a pay-per-view.
No, it's
not. It's free.
Everything
it's free?
will be free for anyone.
All free.
I think they all got the same thing. Hulu, Amazon, Oculus, not Vibe. Many people, Arte, give the content for free because they need people to come more and more. I mean my content. I speak cinematic reality, he speaks interactive. So on my kind of content, they really want something for free because they think, and I think they're right now, but it have to evolve quickly. I think that people are not ready to pay for cinematic reality content.
Okay, and Adrien, in terms of yours, what's the kind of fee for?
Well, Yeah, the perspective is different from Antoine's because the headset makers, which are the ones who have the best, the biggest vested interest in seeing content succeed, want to have developers emerge and take interest into committing to VR. And for interactive content, which uses the same sales channels and targets roughly the same audience as video games, it's important that the content creators get to make money right away and release it at a premium price. So we've never had conversations with production partners saying that the content needs to be released for free on the platforms, because it's, the idea that the content makers targeting the players need to sell their content for a profit beyond having the money to actually produce the profit is already in the market.
Great. So can we move back to that slide? So it's actually fine. And not actually go back. Thank you.
No.
The other one with the big diagram of all the different financiers. Perfect. Thank you. So now we're gonna take a look. I think we've only got another 10 minutes probably, but I want to look at this framework and to go through some of these sort of areas that we feel are kind of important at the moment, and then look at what we feel in the future is going to be significant out of these different 10 areas. So first, in terms of, actually, before, I wanted to ask if any of these financiers in the room, because we wanted to find out, are there any people in any of these areas? Great. So for example, can you say which area you're in? Because we're in Italy. No, we can't. Okay. Fine.
CIA
well, afterwards,
funding.
we'll find you. Sorry, you're at venture company? Great, fantastic. Looking forward to it. Anybody else from any of the other wants to say where they're from? I always like doing this, putting finances on the spot. Hi.
I'm from Technicolor.
Sorry, from? Technicolor. Great. So starting with the incubators. So there is examples like the National Theatre in the UK, which don't provide money, but provide huge amounts of resources in terms of in-kind. They've done quite a few amazing projects, like there was one in Tribeca called Draw Me Close. They're working on many different sort of co-productions as well with different countries. There's a Reality Centre, which is a private incubator and accelerator program, which we're investing about £30,000 at the beginning on seed concept ideas in London. And then sorry, it's a very faint logo, Venice Biennale have got a VR college where they've awarded £30,000. It's sponsored by Sony to two of the projects that have gone through their lab. So those are examples. Are there any other types of incubators you know of, and what's the kind of deal you've seen? Adrien, is there anything you can talk of in France, or?
Well, the landscape of incubators is of course pretty varied worldwide. Innerspace has been incubated in the US, in Korea, and in France, with different structures every time. Of course, I cannot speak for all the incubators, but the ones in the US tend to, and some people may correct me if I'm wrong here, US incubators tend to want share ownership or use convertible notes to kickstart the company, whereas at least and the same in Korea, whereas in France it's more like a service that they're offering and that you're paying for without equity ties with the incubators. I just want to mention that this seems pretty chaotic, and that's part of the purpose. This is the cosmic soup of funding in VR right now. Someday, hopefully, in the coming years, it's going to get structured. But right now, I mean, we've put a lot of logos everywhere, which could be in other places, because all those guys are trying to get the industry to take off, and the big ones have stakes in most of the areas, and of course, the Vive, the Oculus, and so on and so forth. Sorry, I diverged from the
No,
answer.
not at all. Don't worry, because actually we should probably talk more generally, because we don't have time to go through this. So at the moment, talking about your projects, it's the hardware companies, the government funds, and the broadcasters and platforms which tie in with the hardware companies. Do you feel those are the significant ones at the moment? Or
Yes, well, from my point of view, and Antoine may have a different perspective on that, but clearly the ones that we're talking most with are, and that's not going to be much of a surprise, are the Oculus and HTC and the Googles of the world, and essentially the ones which have at least 2, maybe 3 categories in which they could fit here, because those are the ones who need to have, the whole thing again take off.
So we're kind of talking about the next studios, really, for content in a way, that have platform, data about audiences, and significant money to finance content. So a combination of that.
Well,
Yeah.
there's different takes, in my opinion, to this. Either we're going to see the big ones get more and more stakes in most of the fields, or break down in different strong pieces, but each focused on their core. I cannot answer that, sadly.
So Antoine, as far as you're concerned, in terms of finance, out of these kind of like
So
areas.
I think to stay brief, because it's
Yeah.
really a short conference,
Yeah.
which is nice, so you got many of them. Cinematic reality is really, really expensive. So no, you cannot do a project less than a little million, and I think that's the really minimum you can have. So the first thing you have to do is thinking about, okay, there is money I need, but there is also partner that can help me to go down the need on cash. Because, so let's guess you have a project around 2.5 million, you're a little French studio, you will not find 2.5 millions. But many people, like Framestore, like Technicolor, these people also need content and need to. It will not last, maybe it won't be the case in 5 years, but today, or Lightro, if you want to do volumetric, they're taking projects to collaborate with you. So it's like the Lightro, they have X amount of dollar for 1 minute. If you work with them on a partnership, it's 10% of that amount. So it's really important to think that it's also true for the incubator. So incubator can help you to have scriptwriter, interactive console, things like that cost a lot. Everything is aligned on the budget. So the first thing for me is find the people that are not giving the money, but are giving things it's the same value as the money, because it helps you to get low on what you need on cash. So for me, the post-production companies, the incubators are really important on that, and the foundation, because the foundation sometimes it's money and sometimes also is like helping you on some part of your project, for me will be the first step. Then you will need to still find a lot of cash, and then you're going to see, and I think that's one of the main difference for us. It's a luck for me. I can go to a hardware company and I can go to platforms and broadcasters. Because when they ask exclusivity, in fact, they don't ask the same exclusivity. So let's imagine you can have a deal. I haven't made it, but I imagine I will maybe soon. You can have a deal with Amazon and Oculus, I think. You can say to Amazon, okay, your application will be on every HMD. So, but the movie is really expensive and you don't want to pay 1.2 million, only you. So you will say to Amazon, okay, the number is like this. Huh? Like you pay 500,000, Oculus will pay 500,000, but you'll share the exclusivity, which means you'll be only on the Amazon application on the Oculus HMD. Only for a first window, so you say 6 to 8 months. And then where we were really lucky in cinematic reality, because when you do a movie, usually the brand of your TV doesn't help to pay the producing of the content. And in virtual reality, we get these new people that come here to pay. Of course, it's like I said before, we're on drip. They won't do that for a long period. They're doing that because they're in an audience. Nobody's here to pay the contents. And of course, they have to change really quickly on the years coming. But for now, it's something really important for me to say, I can have a platform, have a broadcaster, and have an hardware company to find the money. So then there is a new thing coming, which is, when I did the 2 first movies, it wasn't there. But now there is the new distributors on exhibitor and arcade. And they begin to give money in advance to have the right for their VR-based theater. So they don't give a lot. It's not the best part of your budget, but it's something, it's between 25 or 100,000 euro. You can find, giving them the rights to location-based theater. Because really often, not all the time, it depends on the people you talk with, but if you talk to Hulu, they don't care at all if I showed a movie in VR-based theater in the world. It's not even in their contract. They want the digital rights for US and Canada. So for me, it's also something really important. And of course, the crowdfunding is always nice to have a little end of budget, but I think the VC, I will hear what you say after, so I don't know if I'm right, but I think that a few VC begins to to pay for content. I have some friends, American friends. I'm not sure I can tell it's secret or not, so I won't tell their name. They made a game for 2.3 million, and they get 100% from a VC that pay for their games. You know, because I think the VC begins to realize that after putting 6 billion in tech, they need to build IP, and IP that are made for VR and created for VR. So this VC, I think, begins to exist. I met one really briefly yesterday. He was investing in content. So I think it will come more and more, even from my side, which is not related to making a software or making a hardware related to a content.
Which is very interesting. And a conversation we had at breakfast today was around the fact that in film and television, it was very rare that private investors would invest in a production company. And both your companies have private investors who backed you, which I never heard about in the film business, which is super interesting, which just kind of proves your point. That actually, and we're here from the next speaker, how interested VCs are in content, which should be a first, really, when you think about it, apart from very sort of A-list content out of the studios. So say, and Adrien, you were saying you have an investor as well in your company, both of you. And how long ago, and when did they get involved in the company?
They got involved during the first wave of VC investment in VR content, which was early in 2016, sorry. My take on VC, on venture capital investment, is that it follows waves and fashions, and right now content is not very hot in that space, at least not in the US. So yeah, we were right in the middle of it. That's roughly when the Penrose and Baobabs of the world raised significantly higher amounts of money. Yeah, again, right now the VC investment is probably closer to tech and tools than content, but again, it's a trend that I've seen come and go, and I'm pretty sure in the next 6 or 8 months, content is going to be hot again and then cold again. It's not something to be that focused on, maybe, for us content makers. My personal take on this is that we should, focus on being alive when the next wave hits.
Well,
resiliency, that's the less scary word that I wanted to use.
Absolutely.
And I think that's important what you say related to the software. Like, many people think that Baobab raised a lot of money thanks to their little cartoon characters, but in fact, many of that reason was linked to the fact that they were building a real workflow behind it and real software. And I think we have to stop the conversation.
Yeah. That's fine. Carry on. Finish. That was just a signal as opposed to stop now.
Okay.
Yeah, I just wanted to see that if you look at those companies that have raised significant amounts of money, if you go deeper, they do have a strong tool set. And recently, 2 days ago, Alchemy Labs was bought by Google, which is the first successful true exit for content makers. So again, there's a shift. There's something that's moving on that end, and that's my time's up.
Thank you, both of you. Can we just, I want to do some shameless promotion at the end, so can we just move to the next slide? Oh, it's the last slide, actually. So there we go, we've got more promotion, not just me. Thank you. So I'm also, I didn't mention, I am the programmer of Venice Film Festival new competition section for VR. So it's the first time an A-list festival has done a proper competition section with a jury in line with feature films, and also programming the finance market there. So if anybody wants to come talk to me about their project, feel free. But thank you so much for sharing all of that knowledge very candidly. And that diagram is going to grow vastly, so it's only a template for today. But thank you very much.